is an old Cornish saying, and I fear that this House is not doing a proper job of giving this piece of legislation the scrutiny that it needs when the government has asked for the timeframe for the consideration of this bill to be truncated from 4 months to around 2 months. This House and we as Members of Parliament have a duty to make sure that for a piece of legislation which the government thinks is significant to bring into the House under urgency, is one of the major pieces of legislation in this year's budget, that we give the public and those stakeholders around New Zealand a fair chance and a good period of time to let their feelings known. Mr Speaker, my colleague Andrew Little made a very good point in his contribution, that the Select Committee process, and I'm sure all Members of Parliament are right around this House, gives the opportunity for people to come in and make submissions and to improve a bill. And by reducing the amount of time that this bill is going to be considered in a Select Committee to 71 days, does really rob the opportunity for many, many people to come to Parliament or to visit the Select Committee to make their views heard. Mr Speaker, this is a significant piece of legislation, as the Minister said, before we got to this truncation debate. 104 members of this Parliament voted for it. We do realise that housing affordability is a major issue for New Zealanders. It's a bit of a pity that the National Government is about 4 years too late with that. But they have come to a piece of legislation within this bill that needs a good hearing and needs very close scrutiny. And as I said, Mr Speaker, to give the opportunity for people out in New Zealand to have their say and possibly improve this bill and to reduce it to a 10-week hearing of submissions as opposed to the usual 16 really isn't giving people out there enough of a chance to hear their voices, to hear their views about this bill. Mr Speaker, we do have concern that this is the second time in 1 week that the government has come to this House and asked for the Select Committee stage of a bill to be truncated under urgency. Another piece of legislation debated last week around the security of telecommunications was brought before this House, and we had to do something very similar to what we're doing now and to ask the rationale of a significant piece of legislation being brought into this House and asking why, if it is so important, are we limiting the opportunity for people who think this is a very, very important issue to come and have their say in Parliament, because we do believe that the Select Committee stage is very important for the public to have scrutiny around pieces of legislation, and especially significant pieces of legislation such as this. This is a complex issue. And that's why I think the government has decided to take some action after a very long time of inaction, and to take some action in this budget announcement and to bring this bill within to Parliament. So because it is a complex issue, Mr Speaker, we do believe that the public should get that other 6 weeks that they've been robbed of in terms of being able to make submissions to a Select Committee. As has already been stated, it also gives a bit more time for Members of Parliament to consider some of the submissions that are made at Select Committee, to offer up amendments at the Select Committee stage, and to talk through some of the complexities that are certainly going to be brought up around the complex issue of housing supply and housing affordability. Mr Speaker, in the explanatory note, this bill says, the government says this bill provides a mechanism for central government to work together with territorial authorities to address the issues around housing supply and also affordability issues. Mr Speaker, by taking time away from a number of local councils and district councils who I'm sure will be very interested in this piece of legislation, by taking away 6 weeks out of that Select Committee process, I think it robs them of many, many opportunities to make submissions and to scrutinise this bill. Mr Speaker, as I said, this is the second time in a week this has happened. This time it is at the behest of the Housing Minister, Nick Smith, who does have a bit of a bad habit around due process. and to truncate this select committee process from roughly 16 weeks down to 10 weeks. He does have a bit of form, and I'm suggesting around the sacking of the ECAN Council, Environment Canterbury Council.
Order.
Okay, apologies, Mr. Speaker. So what we need to make sure is that we're not creating a pattern of behaviour in terms of due process in this House, because it's very, very important for this Parliament to have credibility, to make sure that in the eyes of the public that we are doing things properly, that we do follow due process. And Mr. Speaker, we've got major concerns, as I say, when we've got two pieces of legislation in 1 week that have asked to have the time frame for the submissions to Select Committee truncated. Mr. Speaker, the Government, or the Minister, has asked for this to be reported back on the 26th of July, 71 days for the public to have their chance to have a say on this rather significant, just a little bit short of Mr Aaron Gilmore's term in Parliament, but there's 71 days, Mr Speaker, for individuals, for companies, for organisations, and for, importantly, those local bodies who will have a huge interest in trying to make sure that people within their communities have a better supply of housing, have much more affordable housing. And, Mr Speaker, I'm not sure if 71 days is enough to be able to give these issues that are going to be traversed within this bill enough airtime and enough opportunity for every one of those stakeholders who thinks they can make a good contribution to the process to be able to make their voices heard. Mr Speaker, this is a serious issue of due process. We are here as parliamentarians. The Select Committee process is a very important part of the process in terms of making sure the public can have scrutiny and have their say. But by truncating this period to just the 71 days, Mr Speaker, does not give them the significant opportunity to be able to make a contribution to that. Mr Speaker, housing affordability is an issue that is on the radar now because the Labour Party put it on the radar. And it's credit where credit's due. The government has done something, but that's not to say that when you do something, you don't ride roughshod over the parliamentary process and truncate the time period of which New Zealanders right around the country will be able to make a contribution to the Select Committee process. So, Mr Speaker, we would ask that the House not support this motion to shorten the time period for the Select Committee process. We would ask that this Parliament give the people of New Zealand, all those around New Zealand who have opinions, who have views about housing affordability, housing supply, a very important issue for Kiwis at the moment. It's going to be a defining issue at the election campaign next year. Those people, because it's such a big issue around the country, need to be given the opportunity to speak their minds, to give their opinions, to look through some of the details and the data around housing affordability. And to be able to do that, Mr Speaker, they're going to need more than 71 days, more than 10 weeks that the government is asking for. Mr Speaker, the views of New Zealanders need to be listened to. Mr Speaker, the views of New Zealanders need to be listened to. The government doesn't necessarily like that. As I say, two pieces of legislation in just the 1 week. So, Mr Speaker, the views of New Zealanders should be listened to. They should get their full opportunity to make their views heard on housing affordability. This is a government that doesn't like due process. We've seen two examples of it in the last week. Mr Speaker, pardon? Well, I'm keeping to the... well, what do you want? Do you want me to speak about something else and then raise a point of order? Well, Mr Speaker, this is a very important issue. The views of New Zealanders around the country need to be listened to, and this government wants to shut the debate down.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The ayes. Party votes called for, or ask the clerk for a party vote.
New Zealand National.
59 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
No votes.
3 votes opposed.
Green Party.
14 votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
7 in favour.
Māori Party.
2 votes in favour.
Mana.
1 vote opposed.
Act New Zealand.
1 in favour.
United Future.
1 in favour.
Brendan Horan.
1 opposed.
Any other votes?
Members, the ayes are 70, the noes are 49. The motion is agreed to. I'm waiting for the Minister.
Mr Speaker.
The Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Mr Speaker, I move that the social housing reform